following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Light up the cigar right out of the gate, my man.
Hey, what's happening, man?
What's up, Jackson? For those of you joining in to the live stream, thank you for tuning in to BS Sessions Volume 35. My name is the great and powerful Staniel Smooth, and joining me today, big fan of this man's work, the host all the way from Seattle, Washington, and the host of Cigar Thoughts podcast. And light up a good cigar, my man. What are you smoking?
This is actually my cigar.
Good deal.
Yeah. We hooked up with one of really great cigar manufacturer, supplies some of the biggest labels in the world, and we did our own release. So that's what I'm smoking.
Good man. Welcome aboard, Jacson Bevens, the host of the Cigar Thoughts podcast, talking all kinds of Seahawks, smoking cigars. I am sans cigar, but I do have some bourbon on me. So
Hey, all right. Cheers, brother. I'm right there.
that's the
with you.
plus. Cheers, brother. Cheers. What are you drinking?
I got the Westland Distillery Garyana number 7, not the number 8. Their new release, the Garyana, the number 8, just got named the number 3 whiskey in the world.
Nice, dude.
Yeah, I can't get my hands on. I've got a freaking partnership with these dudes, and I can't get my hands on it. So
It'll be like that sometimes, bro.
Yeah, I'm drinking the number 7, but it's good. How about yourself?
I'm not sure. I'm not gonna lie. So, story time. My girlfriend decided to infuse whiskey with some kind of whiskey chips, or So
it's like an Amberana.
Yeah. So I decided to infuse it with some screwball, and it's really good.
So you got like a kind of like a cedary peanut butter vibe going on.
And some like coconut chips, I think she put in there, some kind of citrus chips in there.
Cool.
She's nuts in there. But dude, welcome aboard.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you doing this, my man. This is a big, as I said before, big fan of your work, big fan of the show that you like to do. And
That's very kind of you.
and I don't know if you could tell, I am decked out in my Seahawk gear, and on the other arm.
Hey, that's
you
a nice
go.
hat right there. That's some good.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate
that right. Is that a Jimmy Graham jersey?
This is unfortunately a Jimmy Graham jersey.
Yes. No way, man. I love Jimmy.
I love him too, but like Seahawk fans are obviously very torn on that trade.
Sure. Yeah, I get it.
I loved it when they first made it, but after a while, it's like, did they really need to do that?
Well, it's interesting because I don't hate the trade on the surface. I think in hindsight, it was like Jimmy Graham for Max Unger in a second, something like that.
It was Max Unger, a first round pick, and a fourth.
That's right. And then maybe Seattle got some kind of day 2 pick back or day 3 pick back. But either way,
I think so.
I was okay with it because they had just lost the Super Bowl the year before and won it the year prior.
Yeah.
And, the way they lost that game, it's like, well, shit, if they had a Jimmy Graham to throw to, that might be different. So I understand the process behind it. The thing for me that was frustrating is you brought in a tight end who the postseason prior literally sued the NFL to be seen as a wide receiver, and then you tried to put his hand in the dirt.
Right, I remember that.
Offensive lineman, like if you're going to trade all that for Jimmy Graham, and like Max Unger is the last good center this team had, if you're going to trade all that for Jimmy Graham, like you got to use him for what he's best at. I think it's the same issue that they had with the Percy Harvin trade. I think the same issue they had with the Jamal Adams trade is just not having a clear plan for how to integrate. I don't really mind trading high draft capital for good players, like that's fine, but man, you got to have a really clear plan of action for those guys. And Seattle just didn't really do that with any of those trades.
They tend to do that sometimes. But let's talk about your show. How did Cigar Thoughts start? Because you are a very popular Seahawks podcast. How did this whole journey of yours start? Like, take me forward from day one going forward.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you asking. It's very kind of you. I've always enjoyed writing and obviously been a big sports fan and Seahawks team that I follow closely. I live up in Bellingham, Washington, about an hour and a half north of Seattle, and been a Seahawks fan my whole life. And so I started writing about them for fun. Oh gosh, probably 2008, 2009, something like that. And eventually that turned into an opportunity to write for a website called Field Goals, which was always my go-to as just kind of this, in my opinion, kind of the sharpest football analysis relating to the Seahawks that I could find. And the editor at the time, Danny Kelly, came across my work and asked if I'd be interested in writing for the site. So I did a bunch of different types of articles until one day I just decided to write a post-game recap right after the game was over. And I did that, and people liked it. And so I kept doing that. And this would have been like 2011. And so I started doing it after every game. And then as more and more people started to read it and respond to it and seemed to like it, I realized I needed something to make it searchable, that, you know, if people were looking for my specific post-game article, they'd be able to find it. So I thought, what is unique about this process for me? And what it is the first thing I would do after a Seahawks game is I'd light up a cigar and I'd think about it. And while I smoked the cigar, slow my breathing down after the game, and then get my thoughts in order, and then I'd write. So they were my Seahawks Cigar Thoughts. That was the name of it. It was Seahawks Cigar Thoughts. And so that really worked. People all of a sudden had something they could search for or bookmark after each game. And then a couple of years ago, I reached out to Mike Barwin, really, really gifted producer who has done some really cool work both in and out of sports with like some documentary type stuff. And he's produced a couple other podcasts, and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about making this a show." And he didn't hesitate. He jumped right in. So for 2 years, doing a weekly show. And honestly, you know, most of the positive feedback we get has to do with the guests that we have on. And then the second most common positive feedback we get is how good the show sounds. And that's just because Mike kills it. You know, I'm like,
kills it. He does.
I'm like third or fourth on the list for reasons why people the show.
And when they're watching, they're looking at the glorious beard that you happen to have. Like, what do you?
Yeah, you got a good one too, man. You got a good one too.
Man.
You got the beard
brothers. What are you putting there, bro? It looks good.
Thank you. Vitamin E oil.
No shit.
Yeah, just tiny little bit. And then I work that in every night and comb it a bunch. Like comb it a bunch every night. And
comb it
a bunch in the morning. It's just like you just get like enough to cover like the inside of your palm, rub your hands together, rub it through the beard, and that keeps it from getting all crazy.
Because I use like regular beard balm. I use beard oil from time to time, and then someone brought me up to beef tallow. I
have heard of that. I've never played around with it just because
it's not bad.
Has worked. No, I know a guy who uses beef tallow, and then he blow dries it and then puts it back on, and he's got a really big, beautiful beard. So
like the Viking beard or some shit.
Yeah, totally.
But dude, as of recording this, it is Tuesday, January 9th. 2 days ago, the Seahawks season just ended. I don't know about you. I've been frustrated to high hell and back with this team for the better part of 7 or 8 years.
Sure.
Deep down, coaching staff is frustrating me. I want to hear your thoughts on the 2023 Seattle Seahawks season as a whole.
Yeah, I don't think you're unjustified in being frustrated. You know, I also have been frustrated with this team since about 2016. You know, my whole thing, and if there's anyone listening to this that has listened to my show, read my stuff, I'm big on zooming out. I think that as a sports fan, it's really easy to get pulled into the granular stuff, what just happened, and whatever is frustrating us at the point or whatever we're thrilled about at the point usually feels like a bigger deal than it really is. And when you zoom out, you know, I was pretty forgiving of the team 2015, 2016 with their struggles because they were coming off of 2 straight Super Bowls. And at some point, it's just like, okay, how spoiled am I going to be? I've waited my whole life for them to win a Super Bowl, and now 2-3 years later, I'm going to be all pissed off. No. Yeah. Then 2018, they had that loss to the Cowboys in the first round where they didn't really start. It was coming off of Russell Wilson's best statistical year. They didn't really start passing the ball till the fourth quarter. And they, you know, it's not like running was working. They were just stubborn, cost them a winnable game. And then they just have kind of been driving in the mud ever since. So I share your frustration. I was really frustrated with them like 2017 through 2021 as the relationship between Pete Carroll and John Schneider started to fray and disintegrate.
And Russ too. Don't forget him too.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did I not say? I meant to say Russell Wilson.
You said John Schneider, but You meant to say Russ. I can only assume there.
I did. Yes. Thank you.
You're good, bro.
Yeah. The relationship between Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll and John Schneider is that started to disintegrate. And I had some folks who are connected with the team who are kind of keeping me abreast of that situation as it was developing kind of before that stuff went public. So I kind of saw it coming, and then I thought they had it worked out. I really did. I thought they were going to make it happen. I thought that ultimately the team should choose Russell Wilson over Pete Carroll if they had to make that choice. They went the other direction, and I'm glad I did. I've been pretty open about being wrong about that. So I say all of this not just to ramble, but because Staniel, as I think about these last couple of years, sure, it's frustrating. 9-8 just feels like you're stuck in the middle. They haven't won a playoff game in since DK Metcalf's rookie year. It's been one playoff win in 6 years. But there was a pretty full reset that was done before the 2022 season when they traded Russell Wilson, at the time cut Bobby Wagner. And, most of the country was picking them to be one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Terrible.
And taken through that lens, I think it's actually pretty impressive that they've gone 18-16 since then. I think that if our expectations of the team weren't so high for the 3 or 4 years previous and feeling like they were underperforming, I think it would be a little bit easier to swallow these back-to-back 9-8 seasons. But, I said this in my last article after that game on Sunday. If I transport myself back to the day of the Russell Wilson trade, and you got Drew Lock coming back, and he's going to compete with Geno Smith for the quarterback range, and they cut Bobby Wagner.
No idea. You have no idea how many jokes I have received over the course of the last 2 years saying you wanted Drew Lock.
Yeah. Totally. Right. And it's like, okay, if you told me, here's how the next 2 years are going to go. They're going to go 9-8 both seasons, and they're going to make the playoffs one of those years. I would have been like, hell yeah, sign me up. Are you kidding me? I was expecting this to be 2, 3, 4 years before they got to that level. So it's tough. I think that what really happened is they were so much better than most people, myself included, thought they'd be last year, made the playoffs, and then they came out and started 5-2. And they suckered me into thinking they were closer to being ready to really compete, make it to an NFC championship game, maybe make it to a Super Bowl, than they actually were. And so now it feels like a real letdown. But I think if you zoom out and look at the last 2 years taken as a whole and where this roster was after that trade, it's actually pretty remarkable.
You mentioned your frustrations. Mm-hmm. One of the frustrations that I think a lot of Seahawks fans would agree on is the defense.
Oh, my God.
The defense went from one of the best in NFL history. You can argue top 3 or 5 in the history of the entire league in a good 4 or 5 year stretch, to now all of a sudden you're looking at, in a 3 or 4 year stretch, one of the worst in NFL history.
Yeah, they've been bad.
I've been one to say been overly critical of Pete in the way he handles his scheme and the way he runs the offense and the way he runs the whole defense. I'll ramble on Pete after you, but what are your thoughts on Pete Carroll as a whole? Because he's going to go in the Hall of Fame. He's the best coach of the franchise ever had.
Yep.
But over the last couple of years, it seems like that the game is, to use this cliche lightly, passed him by. Sure. What are your thoughts, my man?
I think that sustained success at the NFL requires a lot of innovation. And it's tough because you have to balance that with not just changing for the sake of change. You have to stick to your principles. And with Pete Carroll, I'll take him over maybe every single coach in the NFL Monday through Saturday. His ability to get the buy-in from a bunch of young, rich alphas is really remarkable. It's not something... You see the type of videos from the Seahawks all the time that you only see from other teams after a big win. And his ability to approach, or at least get the guys approaching each game like a championship game, is really impressive. One of the things that he kind of flips on his head is most coaches, when you hear them talk about big games, it's like, oh, we're just going to treat it like any other game, right? Like they're trying to get their players to come down from being hyped up about a big playoff game or a championship game and say, no, this is just like every other regular season game. Pete Carroll flips that on its head. He treats every single game, preseason, regular season, playoffs, like it's a championship game. So that when it is a big game, the guys aren't having to get up for it. They're already up for it. He's not trying to bring them down. He's trying to raise them up all the time. And I think that's a really special thing. He is a league average at best head coach on Sundays. And that's not good enough. And it's certainly not good enough in the NFC West. And he's had a tough time with his coordinators, whether that's just picking the wrong guys or they're not fitting, their play calling isn't fitting within his ethos or what. But you brought up the defense, man. At the end of the day, it's tough when you're Pete Carroll and you've built one of the 10 most impressive coaching resumes in the history of the sport. And you did that on the back of being a defensive genius, and make no mistake, he changed the way the way defense is played in the NFL.
Yeah.
He did in college too, if we're being honest.
He basically invented how the cover 3 was played.
Yeah. He put his own spin on it. He was the first guy to build a defense back to front in terms of, where he really emphasized his best players. And it took the league 4 or 5 years to figure that out. But then they figured it out, and they've never adapted. And they've tried. They've moved to single high. They've moved to a little bit looks. They tried a 3-4 the last couple of years, sort of, and none of it stuck. So yeah, that part of it's frustrating. Pete Carroll, unfortunately, feels like a high floor, low ceiling head coach. And I'm grateful for the high floor because I don't have to worry about rooting for a 4-13 team. But it's frustrating when the team can win 8, 9, 10 games. And it's like, okay, but when are they going to start winning more?
Yeah, this team is way too
haven't been able to do it. What about you? What's your frustration?
So I think it was around the second Falcons playoff loss in 2016, or if I want to go even further, the Cowboys playoff loss, where I told a bunch of my friends, like, listen, this team's not going to go anywhere until they make some massive, and I mean massive, changes. They did one. Russell Wilson, they did one. If I had the opportunity to make that trade 10 times over, I would probably make it 8 times out of 10. I'd still make that trade.
Yeah.
To get the value back from him.
Well, you talk about selling at a high.
Oh, good God, yeah.
I mean, they couldn't have timed it any better.
Oh, God, yeah. The second the Rodgers contract came out, I told a couple friends of mine, Russ is getting traded.
Yeah.
There's no way he's not getting traded.
You nailed it.
Yeah, I'm not proud of it, but hey, what are you going to do? But at the same point, I mean, the roster from top to bottom defensively, if you look at the list of players that are currently on this team, Leonard Williams, Jaron Reed, Draymond Jones, Uchenna Nwosu, Wagner, Brooks, Mafe, who's came out of nowhere.
Yeah, he was
this season.
This year.
Witherspoon, Kobe Bryant, Mike Jack, Quandre, Jamal. Don't get me started on Jamal, but at the same point, this team, this defense should not be ranked where they were the last couple of years.
I agree.
No shot.
I agree.
And you can blame it. You can blame it on the coaches. You can blame it on the players. But at the same point, Pete made those hires. This is Pete's scheme.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely, this is absolutely Pete's scheme. And Mike Salk, love the guy, but he's the biggest Pete Carroll defender on the face of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll never say that, oh, this is Pete Carroll's fault. But you hear guys like, but you hear the other guys on the Seattle sports station. By the way, I'm on the complete opposite side of the country. I'm in New York.
Hey, all right, man.
Yeah, I'm in
New York.
But I've been very critical of Pete, and I'm a big Dan Quinn advocate. I think if the Seahawks job becomes available in the next 10 minutes, it's the hottest job on the market, without question. And I would make that phone call to Dallas right out of the gate and say, how much for Dan Quinn? Without question.
Yeah. I don't hate that at all. I mean, Dan Quinn, of course, him and Gus Bradley kind of split time as the defensive coordinator during that defensive run of dominance. And, Dan Quinn leveraged that into a head coaching job and damn near won a Super Bowl. I mean, he's a good coach.
He is a good coach. He's a very good coach.
And he's had that Dallas defense humming for the last few years.
And with list the players that they have on the defense, they have DeMarcus Lawrence, obviously Micah Parsons, but they have maybe 3 or 4 guys on that defense. No disrespect to the Cowboys defense, but they're the best defense in football. And he's making them play like animals.
That's just it, man. It's the ferocity they play with. I mean, they got good players in Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland and a couple other guys for sure. Like I don't think they have a shortage of talent, but I do agree with you that they are outplaying that talent because they play mean. They play really, really mean football on the defensive side. And that's cool to see. And that's not something Seattle does.
No, I watched the Steelers game 2 weeks ago.
That was bad, man.
That was bad. The Ravens one pissed me off. I was ready to throw something, but that Steelers one made me so mad.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens one was disappointing because they just weren't competitive in it. But I think the Ravens are not only the best team in the NFL right now. I think, and this is backed up by DVOA, I think they're one of the 10 best teams of the last 20 plus years. This year's Ravens team, they're that good.
Mm-hmm.
So I could make my peace with that. Obviously, I would like to have seen that be closer. But I was like, okay, look, you ran into the best team in the NFL on their best day. Is what it is. The Steelers game, that was unforgivable. That's the worst. I mean, and I say this as someone who was ready to walk into the ocean after the Raiders game last year. And that was
the Josh Jacobs
that
game.
On New Year's Eve. Yeah. That on New Year's Eve. That was the worst display of tackling I've ever seen as a Seahawks fan.
Really?
It's gotta be. It's gotta be.
Yeah. Hard to say. I mean,
Bobby Wagner.
Hard to argue that.
Bobby Wagner looked like the only guy interested in tackling anybody in that game. And it was just like, I mean, even Quandre Diggs, who I love Quandre. He was like taking weak ass angles and like hitting guys high without like a lot of oomph behind it. And I was like, oh, because he did that a couple times early in the game. Like, okay, maybe he's hurt. Maybe he's like protecting an injury. And then Reek Woolen, I mean, teams are just targeting him right now, and he is playing hurt, but they're just going at him. You watch this team play, and all the perimeter runs, they're not going to the right side. They're going at Reek Woolen on the left side.
Yeah.
And they've had to put in Mike Jackson, who is much worse at covering than Reek Woolen, simply because Mike Jackson will at least take on a block and hit somebody.
Yeah. Trey Brown, by the way. That kick and ball. That kick and ball.
I like Trey Brown.
I love Trey Brown.
Talent isn't the issue on the Seahawks defense. They've got the personnel. They've got the personnel. It's either the scheme or the way that they're coaching that scheme, because there's no discipline. There's no gap integrity. There's no assignment integrity. Like, it's
what the hell, man.
And it's too bad because there are good players on that defense.
Oh, yeah, they are. I mean, I like Darrell Taylor coming out of college. I had Taylor as a first-round pick in that draft.
Mm-hmm.
And I had him going to the Seahawks. But then when they traded up to go get him, I was like, all right, this is raw, but good player. Good player at Tennessee.
Yeah, I liked him. I liked him coming out. I did.
Yeah, I liked him out of college.
He's had his moments for sure.
He'll give you 9 sacks, probably.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough because Darrell Taylor reminds me as the defensive end version of D'Angelo Hall. And D'Angelo Hall would always get you 6 to 10 interceptions a year and always be near the top. But he did it because he was a gambler. D'Angelo Hall was not an assignment correct corner. He was gambling. It's like Russell Westbrook leading the NBA in steals. Guy's not a good on-ball defender, but he'll gamble. And when he's right, he'll get the steal and he'll get the fast break dunk. D'Angelo Hall will gamble, and when he's right, he'll get the pick. But when he's wrong, he's giving up big plays. And Darrell Taylor can guess, and he's got the athleticism. When he guesses right, he can beat a guy. But he gets beat so often, and it's tough to keep him. That's why his sack count stays low.
What massive changes would you do if you were in this? If you were in John Schneider's position, hell, even Chuck Arnold, the team president.
Mm-hmm. What
massive changes would you do, top to bottom? What would you do?
Ooh, great question. I don't think this team needs an overhaul. But Clint Hurt is in my office at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
To the moon.
Yeah. And I'm wishing him luck, and he'll, I'll speak kindly about him to any team that calls an ass, but he can't be running the defense anymore. I'm a little torn on Waldron. There's some parts of what this Seahawks offense has done schematically that's really, really good. Like their EPA on first and second down this year is number 4 in the NFL. They're behind Baltimore, San Francisco, and Miami,
which is nuts.
They have been an elite team on first and second down this year,
which is nuts.
They've actually been elite on third downs in the first quarter. And I think Shane Waldron is an excellent play scripter. Seattle's offense, for the most part, over the last 2 years, has been really good out of the gates. And then teams counterpunch, and they don't have a counterpunch for that. It got better these last few weeks, and that has to do with Abe Lucas coming back. So I'm torn. I won't hate it if Shane Waldron's back. I'm not looking to get rid of him. But if there was someone out of that Shanahan coaching tree or out of that, Waldron is a McVay guy. But I think, if there was someone real hot that wanted to come and be the offensive coordinator, yeah, I'd be for it. I'm mostly okay with how they've been on the offensive line. Their struggles have coincided with Charles Cross and Abe Lucas missing games. That's it. When those guys are healthy, the offense has been pretty good.
And I love the 2 rookies that they got on there. Oluwatimi, who was, I believe, the Remington Award winner out of Michigan.
Yeah, I like Oluwatimi. I think Evan Brown is what he is. Which is a slightly below average center, and that's okay. Really, it's been guard play.
Anthony Bradford's a mammoth of a man.
Great run blocker.
Yeah,
he's had some moments. The first half of the game against the Browns, Anthony Bradford was looking like Steve Hutchison. He was going head to head with the best defensive front in the NFL, and he was whipping their asses.
Mm-hmm.
So he can do it. He's tough in pass coverage. He just so far doesn't have the feet to handle the stunts of NFL caliber athletes. I hope that changes. The challenge with really tall offensive linemen is, can they get low enough? Because you look at the best pass rushers in the NFL. Yeah, they're amazing athletes. What they really do is get low. And like you watch Nick Bosa or Max Crosby or Myles Garrett play. Yeah, these are big, giant men. But you watch them come off the edge. Micah Parsons is incredible. They look like a Ducati, man.
They're going down.
Like that lean is so low. And so
if
you're 6'5", can you get down and meet them there? And Bradford's really struggled with that.
Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on Pete? Would you consider bringing him back, or would you, let's say, force him into retirement, keep him as VP of football ops? Because he and John work as a tandem, great. But as a head coach, I would keep him as VP of football ops and bring in our Dan Quinn or Mike McDonald from the Ravens.
Yeah, so that's super interesting. I kind of want to get some more of your thoughts on that, because my first impression is that's the one thing you can't do, because I don't think you can have Pete Carroll in charge of football operations and not have him be the head coach. I think that's like asking Bill Belichick to step away from being the head coach and be like, you're going to have Pete Carroll over your goddamn shoulder all the time.
Yeah, right? Good point.
The challenge with that is, I think on paper that's a great idea, and I'm not saying that I'm right and that's a bad idea. Is why I want to hear more of your thoughts on it. But I thought about that too, and the challenge with replacing Pete Carroll is it's not like replacing most head coaches. Very few head coaches. I mean, we're talking Belichick, we're talking Tomlin, and we're talking
Reed, probably Andy Reid,
maybe Andy Reid, in terms of the way that their DNA runs through the franchise top to bottom. Pete Carroll isn't just the head coach. He's the CEO of a $5 billion company. He is the vice president of football operations. He has his hand in every single thing that happens in that building and around that building. And it's incredible. It's honestly incredible what he's done. So when the time comes to move on from Pete, you have to be honest with what exactly you're replacing. You're not just replacing the guy who's deciding whether or not to go for it on fourth down on Sundays.
from the 2-yard line, from your own 2-yard line.
Yeah, the thing is just, you're replacing the entire backbone of your franchise.
Yeah.
And Pete Carroll is someone that if you're ownership, you don't have to worry about him hurting your brand. You don't really have to worry about him being a punchline the way that other head coaches are. You don't have to worry about his ability to develop talent. You don't have to worry about him saying or doing the wrong thing. You're not going to have a Josh McDaniels moment with Pete Carroll. And that to a billionaire has so much value. So much value.
I hear you with that.
But there seems to be a ceiling on his in-game coaching, and that part is frustrating.
Thank you.
No, I don't know. I don't know. Here's what I say, what the reality is. I think that the reality is Pete's going to be the head coach for as long as Pete Carroll wants to be the head coach.
Which could be for another 5 years.
It really could be.
For the love of God. This man looks like he's, for God's sakes, he moves like he's in his 40s.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, he's already proved me wrong once. I thought he was dead as an effective NFL coach after 2018. I wanted him out of here. And all they've done is continue to win more than they've lost ever since. And there's something to it. So yeah, he is the toughest one of all of this.
It's so frustrating because, I lived through the Holmgren era. I lived through the one single year. We had frustrating year of Jim Mora.
Right. And kudos to Paul Allen for moving on after 1 year when he had.
God bless Paul Allen. God bless you, Paul. May he rest in peace. But at the same point, it's like, look at guys like we mentioned, Andy Reid. He's consistently adjusted to new defense. Man. He really is. He's love the guy.
I think he's the best head coach in the NFL.
I would love to have a drink or a good cheeseburger with that man. Yeah, right? He seems like a delightful individual to just hang out with.
Does. Yeah,
he really does. He really does.
I love him. There's, we've had Greg Rosenthal from the NFL Network on the show a couple of times. And the first time he was on, we went head coach by head coach. We listed every other one of the 31 head coaches and said, how many of these guys would you rather have than Pete Carroll? And we just went one by one. And he ended up having Pete Carroll at the time. Now, this is when things were shitty in 2021. And everything was kind of falling apart. And he had Pete Carroll as like 16th or 17th. We had him back on this year and did the same thing, and he had him 7th. So it's like, and this is the guy whose job it is to cover all of these teams. And Greg is so sharp and really knows. Maybe he was 8th, but either way, he was like, yeah, I was just way too low on him. So that's the tough thing is like, yes, there are other coaches who are better. Give me Harbaugh, give me Tomlin, give me LaFleur, give me McVay, give me Shanahan, give me Reed. Those guys, absolutely. But then after that, you are taking a massive risk. Massive risk.
I hear you with that. All of a
sudden, your team is just cratering.
I hear you with that. And at the same point, but it goes back to the talent. Top to bottom, this roster is way too talented to be where they are. Way too talented. And I mentioned this on my show a few times. San Francisco has had a worse record than you since 2015, and they are miles ahead of you.
Shanahan's the best X's and O's guys on the planet.
Oh, of course. Got it from his father. But who got it from Bill Walsh?
Right.
The Rams went to 2 Super Bowls, won a championship, and are better than you. This was supposed to be a down year for the Rams.
McVay, man.
I know. I love the guy.
He's a god.
Love McVay. Love McVay. And his hot ass wife.
Well, and Stafford. The most criminally underrated player in the NFL every year is Matt Stafford.
Oh, love the guy.
Matt Stafford is like a next level quarterback savant.
Do you remember Warren Moon? Do you remember the old days? Oh, you remember there was a Football Life had a documentary where he would chew on his nails to get the perfect sound of a football, and it sounded like just like that every time it pierced. It would pierce the wind. I was like, how do you do that?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like, you've got this remarkable arm talent in a guy like like Stafford, and you're like, make no mistake, I'm sure we'll talk Gino here at some point. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. Technical difficulties from Jacson.
Sorry, you got me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, you good, bro.
But it's like you can do so much when you have a Matthew Stafford, and I like Gino. I think I'm much higher on him than most people are. But he's no Matt Stafford, and we saw the Rams really struggle when they didn't have Matt Stafford last year when he was working through his elbow and his back, and it was like, oh, they won 5 games. So even though McVay is like incredible, he was at a loss because he was trying to win with backups, and that's really, really hard to do. So it's tough, man. It's like
the one that pisses me off though is the Cardinals. The Cardinals are going to get a lot better.
Yeah, they are, man.
They're going to get a lot better.
The Cardinals are coming.
That's why I'm so pissy about the whole stubbornness to change the scheme. Which, let's be honest, Pete won't. He will not. He will insist that his scheme works. It's Pete Carroll. I like to bring this up. Pete Carroll is the my way or the highway, which is just not a bad thing. Sometimes it could be good.
Yep.
Sometimes you could have a 12-win team, 13-win team, 10, 11-win team. And then occasionally you get teams like last year, which mediocre at best offense. Occasionally, but look, that's smart. You just blew your cigar smoke into your drink. I never thought to do that.
Oh, yeah. You'd smoke your whiskey.
I have never thought to do that. Wow.
Nice. It's nice. You should try it.
You know what? That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. This is a rare opportunity. BS sessions is like raw talk, have a good time.
Yeah.
Like, I almost never do sports talk on BS sessions, but at the same point, pleasure to have you on, man. I'll continue to say it.
No, man, I appreciate it. You know, after you reached out, I started listening to your show a bit, and I really like what you got going. But
thanks, man.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. No, absolutely. I really admire what you got going, and really happy to be here. But yeah, man,
I appreciate that, man.
Cool to hear you talking sports.
Yeah, man. I have a cigar for you. Drew Estate Tobacco Dark.
I have not had that one. I do like Drew Estate a lot. I've got
Tobacco Dark is good.
Okay.
Tobacco Dark is good. It's a really good dark cigar. Yeah. I'm sure you can find it. It's everywhere.
All right, man. I will.
Who is Jacson Bevens? Let's talk a deep dive into who you are outside the podcast, outside the writer, outside the Seahawks fan. Who are you? Who is Jacson Bevens?
To start, I'm the luckiest husband in the world. Shout out Paulina. I got lucky and I married the best person on the planet. And so basically my goal is to try and justify that every day. She's amazing. So that's the main thing there. But yeah, you know, for work, I'm a realtor here in Bellingham and the surrounding area. And I really enjoy that. It's like, constantly solving puzzles, right? Like high leverage puzzles, people making, you know, one of the biggest financial, emotional decisions they're going to make in the next 5 to 10 years. And I always take that really seriously if someone trusts me to help them with that process. So that takes up most of my time, to do it at the level that I hold myself, you know, the standard I hold myself to professionally just requires a lot of time, a lot of effort, but I enjoy it. And then other than that, man, you know, here's my life philosophy. I try and view everything that I do through the lens of 100-year-old Jacson, who's laying on his deathbed and he could go any minute. And he's looking back and says, all right, what does 100-year-old Jacson want me to do right now? And it's the most clarifying lens to see every decision through. It's like, if I'm not sure what to do professionally, personally, whatever, I just think about Jacson in 60 years looking back, and it's like, what does he want me to do? And I instantly know what the right move is. So that's kind of my thing. I'm just trying to do 100-year-old Jacson proud.
That's a good way of viewing life as a whole.
I think so.
I've always tried to view life as like enjoy life like a good cigar and a glass of whiskey. Take your time and enjoy that shit.
Yes.
Take your time and enjoy that shit.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more, Staniel.
Well, because to sum up, I see a lot of people, you know, they used to be with, you know, used to work with, blah, 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 that would always be like, oh, my life sucks. But at the same point, it's like, why are you stressing out about life if you're in your early 20s?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Because we didn't know any better.
No, because like
I hear you.
Yeah, because that's my argument with a lot of with like social media as a whole. I've always tried to stay stay towards the goal of what's good for my head. What is good for my head? What is good for my head for the long run, not just for the short term, for the long run. And I go to the gym like crazy. I work out like a madman sometimes. Like I do back. Someone told me I look like a small Brock Lesnar. I don't know how to take that as a compliment or not.
I would
take this as a compliment too. I got a decent build, but like, damn, I'm not that large.
Yeah, right.
I am 5'10" and 260 for God's sakes. But did you have any like doubts going into starting the podcast, starting Cigar Thoughts, going into Field Goals? Like, what was the little doubt monster in the back of your head going like, don't fucking do this, bitch?
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely had lots of doubts along the way. At the end of the day, for me, it's like, okay, what's the worst that happens? I take a shot on this podcast and it sucks and people think it's dumb. Yeah. I stopped doing it. A year from now, no one remembers. But I've also believed that what you focus on increases. And so I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the worst case scenario. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about what happens if it goes wrong. And when I do, it's always, okay, what's the plan if it happens? You know, the complaints that I have aren't real complaints. You know, people would kill to be stressed out about the things that I stress out about. You know, they're not real problems. There's people in this world with real problems. Yeah. And, you know, the way I always think about it is, okay, what if someone who's just having the worst go of it, who drew the wrong cards, who's in a really bad situation, and they got to switch places and have my life? Are they going to spend their time being sad? Are they going to spend their time doubting? Are they going to spend their time being pissed off? Fuck no, man. They'd be thrilled. They'd be thrilled to have my life. And I don't say that to be like, oh, hey, look at how great my life is. I just know my life is great. I got so lucky. I'm healthy. My family is healthy. They live close by. I married an amazing woman. I work a job that I love. I live in an incredible part of the world. Like, some of that I had something to do with it, but a lot of it I didn't. And so there you go. I got dealt great cards, man. I'm going to play them.
There you go.
I'm going to play them aggressively.
There you go. I feel like you would have great tattoo sleeves of just your whole story dedicated on your tattoos right there.
You know, I got a buddy, Kale Puahau, and you know, he's a Polynesian guy, and you know, he's got the, you know, those really beautiful Polynesian tattoos pretty much over his whole body. And I was asking him about it, and he goes, you know, it's really interesting. Tattoo culture in Polynesia is, you go to the tattoo artist, and your first couple of visits, there's no tattooing. You tell your life story, and while you tell the life story, they draw it. They draw it in Polynesian art. And once they feel like they kind of understand what your story is, they have a design and they put it on your body, and it's really, really cool. So, I was like, oh, damn, that's right. I'd be a total poser. I'd be a total poser if I went to a Polynesian tattoo artist. But like, for him to have that connection with his culture, and the way that they approach that, it is. It's really beautiful.
That's beautiful. I've always been fascinated by the whole tribe, like every single piece of like tribal artwork. I've always been fascinated about just tattoos as a whole because I'm working on 2 sleeves myself.
Okay.
And well, I got you on camera, so I got
yeah.
so I got the shark right here. I don't know if you could see
Oh, yeah.
entirely.
Oh, there
So
we
I
go.
got the shark right here. I got the waves right here,
Uh-huh.
right under the shark. And I'm a hockey fan, big time Islander fan.
There you go.
Yeah, so that question brings up a whole lot. How are you an Islander fan, but also a Seahawk fan? Long story.
That's a good question.
Long story.
Yeah, right.
And then this one, my mom would always tell me to just live life one piece at a time. And that's a puzzle, and that's a like an autism awareness ribbon with like puzzle pieces built in there. And
really
it's her
cool,
whole
man.
little saying one piece at a time. Well,
I
I was diagnosed at 2 years old, so and I've always tried to I've had that saying in the back of my head, like, oh, just take your time.
Yeah.
Don't fucking rush.
Yeah.
Like a good cigar. Take your fucking time with that shit.
Man.
Take your fucking time, bro.
That's it.
Oh, the 05, I just had flashbacks of the 05 Seahawks. My dad's a Steeler fan. So yeah.
Oh man. All right.
So,
a house divided.
Well, going back to Geno, my mom is a Jets fan.
Okay.
And I love Geno Smith coming out of college. I thought he has a weirdly accurate noodle arm.
Yeah.
Coming out of college at West Virginia.
It's actually my comp for Michael Penix.
I want that kid so bad.
I think Michael Penix is Geno Smith if he wasn't a knucklehead coming out.
Yeah. So, okay. Seahawks are picking 16th.
Yep.
My theory is that there's going to be only 1 to no quarterbacks taken in the top 5 if Washington decides to either trade for a quarterback. Let's say, out of theory, Russell Wilson gets released by Denver. He goes to Washington. All of a sudden, no quarterbacks get taken in the top 5. I think Caleb Williams drops.
Oh, interesting.
I think he drops. I think it's due in part to this past season with USC, all the drama, all of just the inconsistencies with him. And I love his game. Dude can run. Dude can sling it. He has a lot of Colin Kaepernick in him. Lot of Kaepernick. But something just tells me he drops.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, something tells me he drops. And if either Caleb Williams or Michael Penix or Bo Nix are there at 16 for the Seahawks, who do you take? That is so fucking awesome that you do that.
It's funny. I don't even realize that I'm doing it. It's like,
it blew my mind. I never thought to do that. I've been smoking cigars for a few years. I've never thought to do that.
Well, 90% of our taste is in our nose, right? And so this way you just get a little bit of
fuck damn it, that's brilliant.
Yeah, you get a little bit of cigar taste going with the whiskey. Yeah, I mean, if Caleb Williams is there at 16 for some reason, even if he drops on some teams' boards, I think he still probably goes pretty high. If Caleb Williams is there at 16, you turn off your phone and you sprint to the podium. I mean, I'm like pushing the 15th pick announcer like off the stage to get Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Between Penix and Bo Nix, it's not particularly close for me. I think Penix is a much better player. I like Nix. I think Nix will have a nice career in the NFL. I think Penix has a ceiling of being a top 8 to 12 quarterback in the NFL at some point in his career. And I'm pretty high on him. To me, it's still Caleb Williams 1. And then I think we're going to see Jaden Daniels gain a ton of steam through the draft process. We've just, you look at the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and it used to be the outlier. The athletic quarterback was the outlier. You mentioned Kaepernick. A lot of people were really slow to admitting that Kaepernick was a good quarterback because of the way that he played. Same thing happened with Lamar Jackson. You always had that with Michael Vick and Randall Cunningham. It's like, okay, yeah, they're great. They're great athletes. What happens if you make them stand in the pocket? Well, now we're seeing these guys be able to do it. Because what would happen is in youth football, your best player is the quarterback. Your best athlete, you put him at quarterback. But you weren't really throwing the ball growing up back in the day. And then by the time you get to college, okay, yeah, all right, you were a quarterback in high school, but you run a 4-4. We're going to put you at receiver. We're going to put you at running back. We're going to put you at corner. And nowadays it's like, well, actually, what if we just kept that person at quarterback and developed them as a passer? And, that's how you get the Josh Allens and the Jalen Hurtses and the Lamar Jacksons and Kyler Murrays and these guys who are very, very, very good quarterbacks on their own, just from the art of throwing the football, but they can really destroy you with their legs. And, I think Jaden Daniels 5 years ago is a day 2 pick. I think he's going to be a top 3 pick this year, top 5 pick.
Oh yeah.
So for me, it's Caleb Williams 1. I probably Daniels 2 or Drake May. And then I think there's a tier break. And then of that next tier, which I think Penix is probably in his own tier. And then after that, you get to the Bo Nix, the JJ McCarthy types. But for me, if Penix is there at 16, it's going to be really, really interesting. I think that if he had another game, if he played against Michigan 90% of the way he played against Texas, I think he's going in the top 10. And it's it's just 10. I'm not going to say he got exposed, but he definitely looked human, and he hasn't looked human hardly at all this year outside of that stretch in the middle of the year when he was sick. And so I think there's a chance he falls now to Seattle, and they're going to have a really interesting decision because quarterback is not their biggest issue. Geno Smith is not the reason that this team did not go further.
I love the guy.
I love the guy, but also like just statistically, Geno Smith has been top 12 quarterback the last 2 years, and that's really hard to replace. But if you believe that there is a higher ceiling available to you at that position, I think Seattle is a perfect situation for Michael Penix because I think
down the street.
Sure, you get that for sure. You're going to have buy-in from the fans immediately, but on top of that, most quarterbacks are going to benefit from not having to start right away. But because of the way the new collective bargaining agreement is set up, the biggest market inefficiency in NFL football is a good quarterback on a rookie contract because you're going to have to pay him $50 million if he's the real deal when that rookie contract is up. So it's like, are we going to waste these 3 or 4 years of the rookie deal by having him sit? And, the Packers have always done it. And the Packers are the only team that hasn't had to worry about quarterback for 30 years. Brett Favre was a backup. Aaron Rodgers sat for 4 years. Imagine using a first-round pick nowadays and him not playing for 4 years. And then they drafted Jordan Love. Jordan Love didn't play for 2 years, 3 years. And now he looks like the real deal. Like there's real benefit in being able to sit a quarterback.
There really is.
It's so hard to do. And the way that fanhood is now, especially with everyone having a voice on Twitter, it's really difficult to justify keeping a promising rookie quarterback on the bench. But man, Penix sits behind Geno for a year because Geno's expensive to cut this year, but not expensive to cut after 2024. So I honestly think that'd be a pretty perfect situation. So to answer your question, I'd take Caleb Williams. No question. I'm not even thinking about it at 16, but between Penix and everybody else after those top 3 guys, it's Penix.
Dude can sling it.
He throws the best deep ball of any college player that I've ever seen.
Which says a lot. Which says a lot concerning the prospects that have came out of college the last 20 years. Looking at Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow throws a pretty arm.
Joe Burrow's the only college quarterback, and Herbert. Burrow and Herbert are the only 2 college quarterbacks I've seen in the last, since I considered myself, kind of smart enough to have a real opinion on quarterback play. They're the only 2 that I would put on Penix's level in terms of just throwing the ball 50 yards downfield. He throws the Russell Wilson deep ball.
I saw the kid in Indiana. I'm a Penn State fan, and I saw him in Indiana. I was like, he's weirdly mobile.
Yeah.
He's weirdly mobile.
Listen, if he didn't blow his ACL twice, he's going in the top 10. No, he comes out a year or 2 ago and goes in the top 10.
Yes.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, he was in a pretty good situation playing for one of the best coaches in the country, playing behind an offensive line that won the award for best offensive line unit in college football. He's throwing to 3 receivers, all of which will play in the NFL, one of which is probably going to be a top 10 pick. So it's like, okay, you do that, but I'm also not in the habit of penalizing good players for playing with other good players.
All right. 3 big decisions you would make if you were leading the charge of the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
What are 3 big decisions? You could go roster, coaching, all the above. What would you do?
Number one, I'm replacing the defensive coordinator. I'm probably seeing if I can get a line to Mike McDonald in Baltimore and figure out who his favorite assistant coach is, and probably talking to him about bringing in him as a defensive coordinator. That's number one with a bullet. That's its own tier. After that, I am clearing as much cap space for interior line play as I possibly can on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
If I can have a top 10 paid offensive line and a top 10 paid defensive line, I'm doing that.
Yep. I agree.
And number 3, I'm exploring every single option for a contingency plan at quarterback, but I'm not going to force the issue. If I don't love an opportunity, because the free agent class is pretty much Kirk Cousins and no one else. And Russell Wilson, but that's not going to happen, nor should it. And I love Kirk Cousins. I'm like weirdly high on Kirk Cousins as a quarterback, but I'm not bringing him in. I'd just rather have Geno for the money and for the age. So I'm exploring every opportunity, and I believe in my soul and have heard it from enough people close enough to the decision makers to believe that it's true that if Anthony Richardson had lasted one more pick, Seattle would have taken him instead of Devin Witherspoon this past year. So I think they're really open to getting that next quarterback, and they've been really open with Geno about the fact that they're going to explore that opportunity. So that would be number 3. Is I would do everything I could to work myself in a position to get one of the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL.
All right. I agree with you with both sides of the line. If the Chargers cut Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack or both, I would consider one of those 2 to bolster that defensive line, because they're going to cut a lot of players.
They have to, man.
They have to.
They're in hell right now.
And I would call Joey Bosa without even hesitation.
Yeah, I like Bosa a lot.
I love Bosa.
I love Mac. And my only issue with Bosa is he's played like 50% of the games over the last 5 years.
he's been unhealthy. He's been injured a lot. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I agree with you with the Mac part. Love Quandre. The only way I keep Jamal is I move him to linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
The only way I keep Jamal.
That's a great call. I might move the safeties, making a decision on the safeties up into my top 3. That's a great call.
Yeah.
They have the most expensive safety combo in NFL history.
Yeah.
And they're not playing like it.
And Julian Love is a good player. Loved him from the Giants and at Notre Dame. And
yeah, I like Julian Love. And
you find a way to get Kobe, Devin, and Reek all on the field at the same time. Mm-hmm. Whether it's you put Kobe Bryant at safety, whether you put him at nickel corner and move Devin outside.
Yeah.
You find a way to get all 3 of them on the field.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's something that I think Seattle wants to do. I think it's something Pete Carroll specifically wants to do. I think Pete Carroll values the safety position more than any coach, maybe this side of John Harbaugh. And, they famously were going to take Derwin James and were stunned when he got taken 1 pick in front of them. Like, it was all systems go. They were going to take Derwin James. And frankly, we're probably not having this conversation about the defense had they done that, because you'd have Derwin James on a rookie contract, which means you're freeing up $20 million to spend elsewhere. They loved who's the Ravens kid that's so amazing out of Notre Dame? Hamilton. They loved him too. I think they want a safety. I have not yet familiarized myself with the incoming safety class. If there's a great, I don't know if there's a safety that's potentially there at 16.
I don't know either.
They don't have a 2nd round pick. They do have 2/3. So, I do think they need to figure out safety in a big way.
Jarek Reed can hit, though. I've seen his tape in New Mexico State. The kid can hit. He can hit. Mm-hmm. And he can cover too.
Yep, I like him.
He can cover. He can weirdly cover for a kid his size.
Yeah, maybe he's something special. Maybe he's a diamond in the rough. But usually, guys who are taken on
We'll
day 3 are
see.
taken on day 3 for a reason. So we'll see.
Hell, Cam Chance is a Hall of Famer. He got taken this in what, the 5th round, 6th round?
5th round. It's really, really tough to count on doing that
Yeah.
over and over again. You know, it's the gambler's fallacy is to say, well, it worked one time, so we're going to keep doing it when the odds tell you that it shouldn't. It's like winning the lottery and then spending all of your winnings on more lottery tickets.
I hear you. And one last thing before we sign off for the night. Another reason why I would consider a big time head coaching change is the skill positions on offense. JSN, DK, Lockett. Now you throw Jake Bobo in there. Derek Young. Derek Young's a big body guy. The tight ends with Fant, Parkinson, and I loved Parkinson coming out of college. Disney as well.
I'm a big Colby guy, and he and I have actually become friends here over the last year, which has been really cool. We had him on the show.
Dude's got immaculate hair. He's got immaculate hair.
I tell you what, man, he and I got together and smoked cigars at the Vertigo Cigar Lounge down in Seattle.
Nice.
And tell you what, man, you think you've been around big people before, and then you see 6'7", 280 NFL body, and he came in with his brother Garrett, who you could if you had said, hey, one of these two guys is an NFL player, I'm not sure I could have told you which one was. And just the sweetest guys too, man. But
he has a lot of Tyler Eifert in him.
He does have a lot of Tyler Eifert in him.
He really does.
Yeah, I like that call. I think Fant's gone. He's too good of a player to be in Seattle's system. He's too good to be one of 3 featured tight ends, and I think he's going to command some real money.
I agree.
I think Colby's the guy. Disley's fine, but I think Colby's the guy. I think Fant's the most dynamic guy, but this, barring a massive change at coordinator, it's not an offense that's going to really weaponize the tight end. And honestly, they probably shouldn't for as long as they have these 3 receivers. So, I think Fant's probably gone. If there's a tight end that you like one of those freaky guys, you know, if you have like a Mike Gesicki type or a David Njoku type, a guy that is maybe not going to step in and be Sam Laporta or TJ Hawkinson, but a guy who can develop and just has Isaiah Likely, Chiga Kwonkwo, those types of tight ends that are just freaky athletes, which Noah Fant is one of those, then I think maybe you do it. I just don't think you can pay Fant this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the running backs too. Charbonnet. I love Charbonnet out of college. McIntosh too. McIntosh too can run. Kenny can run.
Yeah, I like him too. I was sad that we didn't get a chance to see him this year.
Oh, I would have loved to see that kid run. He would have
been nice. But Walker's the real deal, man.
Oh,
Ken Walker's got a lot of Le'Veon Bell to him.
But he's also faster. Shockingly faster than him.
He's not the receiver Bell was, but he's got the home run speed that Bell did not have.
Yeah, I agree with you. Dude, Jackson, I appreciate you coming on for the ride, my man. This was a very fun time.
I've had a lot of fun, Staniel. Thank you.
Dude, I gotta fucking try that now with the whole blowing this. No, I'm serious. That blew my effing mind. I never thought in a million years to try that.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, that's great, man. I'm telling you, it's gonna change your life.
And this is the infused whiskey, by the way. Continue.
There you go. The key is don't blow it in there because it all just blow out. You just got to give it just barely let it come out of your mouth, just over the rim of the glass, and it'll hang there. So check this.
I hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dan Cruz, Mr. Staniel Smooth himself. I'm coming to you all the way from the beaches of Long Island, New York. A pleasure. Jacson Bevens of Cigar Thoughts podcast, all the way from Washington. Joining the Department of BS, my friend, and thank you for joining me on this delightful journey on BS Sessions Volume 35. As I said, my name is Staniel Smooth, and I will see you all in this life or the next one. Cheers, guys.
Appreciate you.
Oh, man.